Hi, welcome back. Before the break, we were looking at acquired characteristics and inherited characteristics. And we're now going to focus on inherited characteristics. But before we do so, there's a huge vocabulary associated with genetics that you really need to master to make sure that you're able to use these terms correctly. So let's begin. First of all, we know that all the inherited information is carried on your chromosomes, and that you would have inherited one chromosome from your mother and one chromosome from your father. And we call this homologous chromosomes. And so you have 23 pairs of homologous chromosomes, making up your 46 chromosomes. Now, the whole chromosome is divided into a linear series of genes, which in this diagram I've indicated with little colored blocks. You need to understand that this is a diagram. This is not what a chromosome really looks like. And so I've shown you that a gene is a specified length, a certain length of DNA occupying a particular position on a chromosome. And very importantly, that gene codes for one particular protein. Remember that there will be a gene on the other chromosome, on the homologous chromosome, that controls the exact same characteristic. And we call genes that, like these two light blue ones or the purple ones, the green ones, the ones that are found coding for the same characteristic, we call them alleles. Then, the position of the gene on the chromosome, it's like its address, is called the locus of the gene. And finally, very interestingly, there are bits and pieces of DNA in between the genes that do not code for anything at all. Kind of like spaces between words. You get spacer DNA between the genes. On our homologous chromosome, we have already clarified that we've got alleles, meaning the gene coding for the same characteristic, one received from your mother, one received from your father, but although it codes for the same characteristic, there may be different expressions of that gene. For example, you may have a gene that codes for whether your hair is curly or straight. One allele could be for curly hair and the other allele could be for straight hair. Now, if you have the situation where both of these alleles, your mother, and your father, both contributed genes for the curly hair, then you are what we call homozygous for curly hair. And we can illustrate that with two C's, for example, that are the same size, two capital C's. If you inherited curly hair from your mother, for example, and straight hair from your father, then you are what we call heterozygous. And we indicate that with a capital C and a small c. And the small c indicates that that condition of straight hair is in fact recessive. That means that it is not going to dominate over the curly-haired allele. It's going to be recessive. So we have these terms recessive and dominant. So let's have a look what we've got written here. Alleles that are both capital C, the individual will have curly hair. If one of the alleles is capital C and the other one is small c, they'll still have curly hair because we know that curly hair is dominant. If both alleles are small c, then we've got the recessive characteristic coming into play and the individual will have straight hair. Let's have a look at some of the most common genetically acquired or inherited characteristics that you can actually get, that you can inherit from your parents. Let's have a look at some of these, and why don't you see which of these characteristics you have inherited? One gene that we can have either a dominant or a recessive allele of is your hairline. Do you have what's called a widow's peak, that you have that shape to your hairline, or do you have a straight hairline? And see which of your parents you inherited that from. Remember that the straight hairline is going to be recessive, so you're only going to get a straight hairline if both your mother and your father had that straight hairline. Another gene that is expressed either as a dominant or a recessive allele is your eyelash length. Long eyelashes are dominant, short eyelashes are recessive. What about your earlobes? This is an interesting one to do amongst your family. Do you have free earlobes where the earlobe hangs loose, or is your earlobe attached in that there's no loose dangly bit there? I know girls who have attached earlobes say they can't fit a whole lot of earrings in their ears because a free earlobe tends to be a little bit longer. So which do you have? And what do your parents have? And can you spot or can you trace some kind of pattern going on here? Your ability to roll your tongue. Can you roll your tongue like this little boy? I can't. I have the recessive allele. I can't roll my tongue like that. A very strange one that's in fact a dominant allele, polydactyly, for 6 fingers, as opposed to the recessive allele that is normal for 5 fingers. And finally, do you have short toes or do you have long fingers and toes? Trace it back in your family and have a look at what your parents have and what you and your sisters and brothers have. We'll continue looking at genetics after the break, so I'll see you soon.